Hey everyone. I wanted to begin today's episode with a quote. It's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it that matters. And that's a quote by Epictetus. And that's actually the quote of the day if you go to Brainyquote.com. And there's a link to that in the show notes. And also there's another link to a YouTube video featuring quotes by Epictetus. And it's about 14 minutes long. And of all the Epictetus quote videos out there, this one is one of my favorites. And that somehow seems appropriate for today's show, which is an episode of Deeper Talk. And that's what we're going to get into on episode number 82 here of the All Around Growth podcast. And even after exceptionally long introductions, this is a show where we talk about how and why we are building the lives of our dreams. My name is Rob Kaiser, and I am your host. Today is Friday, January 22nd, 2021. And like I said, today's a Deeper Talk show. And I actually had some other ideas for today's show, but was sidetracked by a particularly unusual but positive phone call this morning from a landscape designer who I have a lot of respect for. And after a brief conversation about how busy he was and what the season was looking like for him, he agreed to do a landscape design for us. And I am excited, and that kind of threw me off my routine of getting the show notes for the original topic today prepared. So I decided to shift gears and do a Deeper Talk episode. Now, what's the Deeper Talk? What is Deeper Talk? What am I talking about for those of you who don't know? Now, the Deeper Talk deck is an expansion of the original Icebreaker deck. And the Icebreaker deck has 150 prompts or cards that will help you get to know people on a deeper level, have more interesting and meaningful conversations, and elevate your communication skills. And all of these cards fall into 6 categories. And those 6 categories are courage, beliefs, self-awareness, life lessons, dreams, and a category called exposed. So, what is today's question? Well, that's a good question because I've got this Best Self deck right here. And for whatever it's worth, I have a discount code available through Best Self because I signed up to be an ambassador with the hopes that I can somehow utilize this in a financially beneficial way down the road. So if you go to Best Self and order anything, use the discount code YMF and you'll save 15% off your first order. And that's YMF for York Meadow Farm, the name of the humble homestead where I live. All right. So here we go. The Deeper Talk episode begins with a question from the exposed category. And where in my life am I lazy and what's your excuse? Damn. When I pulled this out and I saw this category of exposed, I cringed on the inside a little bit because I just, I didn't want to talk about something that would expose my soft underbelly. This forces me to discuss something that I'm not entirely comfortable with. And that is good because that's part of what I'm hoping to achieve with this show, is expand on some things and explore some things that make me feel uncomfortable and examine why. And hopefully use that as an opportunity for what I'm calling all-around growth, just personal growth and development in all aspects of life. So, where in my life am I lazy, and what's my excuse? Well, I'm lazy in one, and I just listed this last night as I began working on my final 2021 not to-do list, which is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to, instead of focusing on things that I don't want to do, I'm also going to list 10 statements about what I am. And I'm going to focus on the 10 positive statements and then look at these not to-do list items less frequently, but focus more on positive statements. And I will do another episode on that later. But for example, I am successful. I am, you can have your own list of things there, and I'll do another episode on how I'm going to generate that list of positive I am statements. But in my life, where I'm lazy and what my excuse is, one would be my diet. I know that if I were to eat a better diet, that my health would improve and I would be in a better position to explore alternative and adjunct therapies with regard to the treatment of epilepsy, a chronic neurological condition which I've had for almost 30 years. One would think that I would be incentivized to do this, but old habits die hard, and many of us have certain patterns of behavior that we engage in to make us feel comfortable, and a lot of that revolves around food. And that's not healthy. Food is fuel, and I understand that there is comfort that's associated with food, but I think a lot of the ways in which we utilize food as a comfort bringer is unhealthy, and more on that later. But that's not what I was initially going to discuss with regard to the primary thing that came to mind with where in life am I lazy and what is my excuse. For many years, I have been for lack of a better term, a regular cannabis user. And when I learned of the medicinal benefits of it, like so many other people, I was overjoyed because then I could, quote, justify my habits. All right. Now that's all well and good, and I'm not dismissing the medicinal benefits of cannabis, but let's face it, I can only speak for myself, but the primary way in which I used it was recreational. And there were certain points in time where I recreated, if you will, a little bit too much. and subsequently decided to, what some friends and I refer to, take a tea break or a tolerance break. And I would do that for anywhere from 7 days up to a month. And I think it's good practice to clear out the gray matter. And once I learned of the medicinal benefits, though, I did, supplement with CBD oil, a good quality CBD oil, because I didn't want my body to be subject to that missing component if there was going to be some sort of negative impact from the withdrawal on a neurological level, because I do have seizures. Now, I hadn't really noticed any of that before, but on the other hand, I really hadn't paid that much attention to things like that in the past, and I'd also been on higher doses of medication, pharmaceuticals, and really hadn't thought about that either. And part of my objective is to get off of those because, well, I've been taking them for 30 years, and I'm already experiencing some negative long-term side effects of that, and I'm afraid that if I continue down that road without making some additional serious changes in my life, that the health impacts are going to be quite serious. And however, now this past year, and with regard to a tolerance break, I would also take for the past couple of years, I would take a 3 or 4 day tolerance break every quarter. And it's good practice. But this past year, it was a stressful year for many of us. And I did not take a tolerance break at all during the past year whatsoever, and have yet to do so. And that's weighed heavily on my mind, because on a couple different occasions I felt like it would be in my best interests to do that, but my excuse was that there were a lot of life stresses, and it was a healthier coping mechanism than alcohol or food or what have you. So now it started to become an issue when I noticed that I was also utilizing alcohol as somewhat of a coping mechanism as well, and I just had a conglomeration of habits that were becoming unhealthy. They weren't unhealthy in and of themselves. Some may disagree. That's okay. But I think everything in moderation, including moderation, that's my motto. And last year, let's just say it was safe to say that I definitely moderated the moderation that is typically a part of my life. I'm looking to change that this year. I don't like that feeling of being out of control in certain areas of my life. And for many years, the focus on gaining control has been on my finances. And subsequently, that has led to feeling more control over my finances. I'm sorry, my spiritual life, my emotional health, mental health. So much of that is improved with regard to the improvement of my financial house. And I didn't necessarily lose focus of all of that last year with the various stressors that we all experienced during the year of 2020, but I certainly utilized much of that as an excuse for refraining from the typical abstinence and fasting that I have frequently and historically engaged in. It was a convenient excuse, and finally, this process of going through the year-end review that I make very extended and long and far more complicated than it needs to be, but it's a good process. It's good for me to do this and do it in the way that I do, because it really allows me to take a deep look and do deep work on this past year review, hours on it, and I analyze my life, and that's allowed me to, really think about and identify just how much that was on my mind, and get the downtime during the holidays and the slow season now gives me a real opportunity to think about just how willing I am to make those changes. And, the changes and making, and the difficulty in making them, and the self-sabotage that we engage in life that prevents us from making the change that we wish to make. That's actually the topic that I wanted to get into today. So it's really quite interesting that this is the direction that this question went. And I guess it dovetails quite nicely with the question itself. Where in your life are you lazy, and what's your excuse? So, my excuse with neglecting the desired abstinence and fasting that I believe is healthy for me to engage in over the course of the last 15 months, let's just say 12 to 18 months, my excuse has been life on life's terms, and just everything that happened in the year 2020. And that was my excuse. And many people will argue that that's a legitimate excuse, but I'm not one of them. We can find excuses in all aspects of life, or we can find reasons to create the life that we want. And that's what we're doing. That's why I'm recording this. That's why you're listening now. That's why you're writing the things that you do. That's why you're taking action in the way that you are in your own life. All right. That's it, everybody. One last time. Where are you lazy? I'm sorry. Where in your life are you lazy, and what's your excuse? Think about that question. Spend some time reflecting on that. And I hope it's beneficial for you to do. It was certainly beneficial for me to talk about today. I hope this episode was a valuable use of your time. And if it was, and you want to support the show somehow, you can best do that by going to the very bottom of the show notes, and there's a link there that says, click here to rate and review the podcast. Clicking that link will take you to Apple Podcasts, where you can briefly leave a 5-star review, and if you feel, or a 5-star rating, and if you feel so inclined, leave a written review as well. Right now, most of the listeners of the podcast are being funneled through the Apple platform, and the algorithms there and the ratings are most beneficial at this time on that platform, and you can get there on the link in the show notes. If you have any questions or feedback for me, feel free to send your questions to allaroundgrowth@gmail.com. And really the best way, though, to get involved in the community is go to t.me/allaroundgrowth. And we're on Telegram Messenger. You can search for us at allaroundgrowth, or on your desktop or laptop internet browser, just type in t.me/allaroundgrowth. You'll be connected with the small but vibrant community of people we got there, and you can be a part of the show. Contribute with your ideas for episodes, give feedback, connect with other like-minded people. It's really kind of awesome. So definitely check us out online. We'd love to connect with you there and look forward to doing so. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.